David Willetts was until recently the Member of Parliament for Havant in Hampshire. He has now been raised to the peerage as Lord Willetts of Havant. Despite these Hampshire associations, David is a son of the Midlands and was educated at King Edward's School in Birmingham before reading PPE, philosophy, politics and economics at Christ Church, Oxford, where he graduated with a first. He entered the world of politics as a researcher for Nigel Lawson, who represented Blaby here in Leicestershire. David then moved to the Treasury, where he rose rapidly. He became private secretary to Nicholas Ridley, who was then financial secretary to the Treasury. He subsequently joined the Treasury's Monetary Policy Division, to which he was appointed at the age of 26. This was, of course, long before responsibility for monetary policy had been shifted to the Bank of England. After 2 years in this post, David moved to the Prime Minister's Downing Street Policy Unit and thence to the post of Director of Studies in the Centre for Policy Studies. In 1992, David Willetts entered Parliament as the MP for Havant. His talent was quickly spotted. He became a whip, rejoicing in the title of Lord Commissioner of Her Majesty's Treasury. He was then appointed as a parliamentary secretary in the Cabinet Office, which is a ministerial position, and then promoted to the post of Paymaster General, and so number 3 in the Treasury. All of this was accomplished in the course of David Willetts' first parliamentary term. It was during this period that David was saddled with the nickname Two Brains. He has since commented that, of course, in the Conservative Party, it was a complete disaster to have a nickname like that. The implication is dangerous intellectual, out of touch with the world. The world of politics is seldom at ease with intellectuals, but as we were later to discover, David's intellectual distinction made him a natural ally of our universities. The advent of Mr. Blair's 3 governments cast the Conservatives into opposition, and after an initial stint as an opposition front bench spokesman on employment, David Willetts held a series of appointments as Shadow Secretary of State for Education and Employment, for Social Security, for Work and Pensions, for Trade and Industry, for Education and Skills, and finally for Universities and Skills. In the wake of the election of 2010, when the Conservatives formed a coalition with Lib Dems, he was appointed Minister of Universities and Science and invited to attend Cabinet. David served in this post with distinction until 2014. He is now a visiting professor at King's College London and an honorary fellow at Nuffield College, Oxford. He is also active as a governor of the Ditchley Foundation and as a council member of the Institute for Fiscal Studies. Somehow, he has also found time to write a long series of books, pamphlets, and essays, usually on economic and social policy. His most recent book is The Pinch, which is subtitled How the Baby Boomers Took Their Children's Future and Why They Should Give It Back. The argument is that the wealth of the baby boomer generation has been created at the expense of the younger generation, and that if our politicians and cultural leaders, a category that includes our universities, refuse to rise to the challenge, the next generation, including those present today, will have to work longer hours for less pay more taxes, suffer a diminution of opportunity for social mobility, and live in a degraded environment. It's an extraordinary book, and it attracted praise from unlikely quarters, including the editorial page of The Guardian. Last year, David became executive chair of an excellent think tank known as the Resolution Foundation. The Conservative Party is often described or traduced, depending on your point of view, as a party that promotes the interests of the rich. For the leading intellectual of his party to be appointed to the chair of a foundation committed to raising the standard of living of low and middle income families is very pleasing indeed. especially as he has been joined by a director with a Labour background. In a sense, this appointment marks the movement of David Willetts from party politician to statesman. The credibility that such attitudes and activities conferred on David Willetts contributed to the good relations that he maintained with the university sector, despite the strains occasioned by the advent of tuition fees. Beyond his credentials as an intellectual, David Willetts also offered an unusual range of imaginative sympathies. When many members of his government and of Her Majesty's opposition took a crudely instrumental view of higher education centered on STEM subjects, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, David Willetts remained a resolute friend of the humanities and social sciences and insisted on their importance as part of higher education provision in this country. This does not, I should add, imply any antipathy towards science. Indeed, David Willetts has a long history of support for the UK science economy and is now chair of the British Science Association. In recent years, David has become a friend of this university. He opened a Space Centre facility in our Department of Physics and Astronomy, and he has praised the work of the university, including our establishing of partnerships in Kurdistan, and more recently, our discovery of the remains of Richard III. In June 2015, the University of Leicester launched its Chancellor's Lecture Series. Our Chancellor is a Labour peer, but his choice for the inaugural lecture was David Willetts, who spoke with great eloquence about the future of the UK science innovation system. Today, we honour David Willetts for his distinguished record in Parliament, for his advocacy on behalf of Britain's universities, for his engagement with the university sector, and for his continuing work on behalf of all of us. Mr. Chancellor, on the recommendation of the Senate and the Council, I present David Lindsay Willetts, that you may confer upon him the degree of Doctor of Laws.
Well done, David. Congratulations to you. Thank you. Yeah.
Well, thank you very much indeed for the great honour that you have just bestowed upon you. And it is a great honour to be associated with this university and this city. Famous for its football, famous, of course, for its car park, and certainly famous for this university. And for me, looking back on my time as Minister for Universities and Science, I think of some of the distinctive and special claims that this university has to greatness. I think of coming here years ago and meeting Sir Alec Jeffreys and discussing with him his extraordinary discoveries in the enabling genetic fingerprinting. There are many criminals around the world who wish he hadn't made that discovery. I think of the extraordinary success of this university in capturing not just national but global attention when Richard III's remains were discovered. And I also think of this university's special role in space, one of the other responsibilities that I had as a minister. Last year, I was over in the west coast of the US, in San Francisco, talking to a young man who is the chief executive of Planet Labs, which has one of the most exciting projects in space at the moment to have hundreds of small satellites generating images of the globe as they circle it. He is a graduate of Leicester University and attributes his success to the opportunity he had here. So for me, it is a great privilege to be awarded this honorary degree. And it's a great privilege in particular to be joined and to be following Sarah Outen, who I thought gave a fantastic speech earlier on. That story of her travels around the world was amazing. I would have loved to have done it myself. I just don't think I could have eked out the supplies of chocolate in the way that she must have had the strength of character to do. And you know, what she described relates directly to some of those accomplishments here in Leicester. Sarah was telling me communication by satellite phone. Something she depended on a network of satellites and space communications that didn't exist even 20 years ago. And it's scientists in places like Leicester that have made that possible. And it's a reminder that every individual, however heroic and courageous, depends on the achievements and accomplishments of others. And that, I'm sure, is something that everyone in this hall recognizes. So let me congratulate all of you who are graduating today on what you individually have received. And first of all, let me say I particularly congratulate you on the extraordinary array of shoes and footwear on display during the ceremony. Theresa May would be proud of you. And there was real flair in your choice of footwear. But let me congratulate you on some other things as well. Let me congratulate you on the hard work that has secured you your degree, and recognize that different ones of you will have taken different routes. For some, I hope that the sheer excitement of studying a particular subject will stay with you and shape your lives. For me, I look back with enormous pleasure at just the opportunity to study politics, philosophy, and economics, and in a way, I have spent my adult career in a range of different roles continuing to study politics, philosophy, and economics, and I hope you have that kind of intellectual excitement. For others, you've been here and studied it in order to get training for a job or a profession, and that is an absolutely worthwhile thing to do, and I hope that you are set up with a qualification that will enable you to achieve your ambitions in life. For some of you, coming to university will have been an opportunity to make new friends, to see the world, to learn about yourself, and to be yourself. That in itself is one of the most exciting things that university can do for us when, for many people, it's the first time that they leave home. I hope for all of you that education will have changed you. And remember that great definition of education. Education is what is left after you've forgotten everything you were taught. And that is the abiding influence of an education at a university, regardless of whether or not you sustain an interest in the particular subjects that you have been studying. So yes, I very much congratulate you on what you've achieved, but let me also congratulate the people who have helped you achieve that. I think of the academic staff of this university and the contribution that they have made. None of what you have done would have been possible without excellent teaching informed by research, which is the reputation of this university. So I congratulate the academic staff, and I also congratulate your parents, your families, your friends who have sustained you through what could well have been 3 difficult and demanding years. And I think we all owe them a round of applause. So I hope you will look back not just on this day for what you have achieved, but look back on your years at this great university as something that has shaped your lives and given you the opportunity in the future to put back something so that you can sustain others when they're on the same journey that you have been on. Thank you very much indeed.